All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Problem Solver Politics live stream this beautiful Monday morning. Glad to start out the week with you. I am your host, Carton Ellis, with none other than the wise, the sage, the illustrious Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And it was actually interesting trying to prepare for this show. You'll have to forgive me, too. I also have a bunch of Crystal Geyser on my shirt. I promise I'm not drooling. It's just the Crystal Geyser. But today when we were doing a little bit of pre-show and trying to figure out, hey, what are we going to talk about today? We are actually overwhelmed with how much there is to talk about, but it's strangely like the eye of a storm or a hurricane where so much is going on around you, but there's kind of like this central piece in the middle where it's also like nothing's going on because it's just so crazy that you don't know which thing to talk about because any of these events that happened over the past 3 days would be like the thing to talk about in 2019 or 2018. But in 2020, it's just not crazy enough. None of these nuts events that would be the thing of the year, okay, in any other year but 2020, they're just all part of this crazy cyclone that's just circling around us. And Cody has indeed developed a theory, which he's been saying for a long time. I give him credit. And Andrew Yang reflected this sentiment as well during his campaign.
He did it forever. They did, yeah.
That, politics has literally become nothing more than pro wrestling. So we're going to go over some pro wrestling facts and figures and culture to back that up.
Well, first I want to get into this though, quick.
And I was just wrapping up and saying I think we're in what we call the post-fact era. So we're just going to see if it's post-fact or if it's pro wrestling, whatever we want to call it. Cody, take it away. Tell us what's going on.
You can go post-fact, go whatever you want. I mean, yeah. I tried to catch up with some news today. I mean, I generally, I stay abreast of the news, so to speak. But when it comes to like just getting into reading all the different stuff going on Twitter and stuff, I've tried to back off for a few days. So I'm like, hey, open up Twitter. I'll go and see what's on. The Hill writes this article. Now, I've read this article, mind you. I probably couldn't put this in any fewer words than Ted Cruz challenges actor Ron Perlman to wrestle Jim Jordan after attack on Gates. What does any of that mean? I apologize. My mic was way too loud right there. But, I mean, like, seriously, what does any of that mean? I read the article. I couldn't tell you what any of that means. But we're going to go through, and we're going to see a little bit more. But what we're talking about here. So, it is indeed an article. I want to shout out to Joe Concha, by the way, for writing this article. Brilliant. This is indeed an article about a Twitter beef. So, Senator Ted Cruz challenged actor Ron Perlman to a wrestling match against Rep. Jim Jordan on Monday, with Cruz predicting the Sons of Anarchy and Hellboy star couldn't last 5 minutes with the former collegiate athlete and coach. The challenge came after Perlman and Rep. Gates got into a Twitter spat over U.S. soccer involving a requirement to stand during the national anthem before matches, which included Perlman calling Jordan the ugliest politician walking. Listen, Hellboy, you talk a good game when you got Hollywood makeup and stuntmen, Cruz tweeted, but I'll bet $10,000 to the non-political charity of your choice that you couldn't last 5 minutes in the ring with Jim Jordan without getting pinned. You up for it? And don't your publicists say too risky? Legitimately, and I'm not like some wrestling historian or I didn't work in pro wrestling. This is legitimately. I'm not even kidding you. Someone could have wrote this for a wrestler to say.
Yeah, that sounds just like a promo.
In wrestling terms they call it that. But the thing is, wrestling didn't create this idea in pro wrestling. The idea of just going out there, saying what you have to say for the effect. Who cares what it is? Who cares if it's Senator Ted Cruz telling actor Ron Perlman that you'd get beat so bad by Jim Joyce and Jim Jordan he literally says you will get pinned in the ring. I mean, it is ridiculous, but it keeps going on and on. But this is a Twitter beef between 3 or 4 individuals. And seriously, this could be a side plot on a wrestling program. Now, again, I got to give a huge shout out here to Mr. Joe Concha. And shout out to The Hill for publishing this article that is literally one guy says that another guy couldn't beat up another guy. And here's the thing, Ron Perlman, that not to be overlooked here, responds, what does he say? That he would wrestle, he said he would wrestle Ted Cruz for $50,000 charity. Hey, tell you what, probably sell a lot of tickets, probably be a hell of a match, right? Between Ted Cruz and Ron Perlman. But I mean, Jesus Christ, but this is...
And The Hill covered this. Like the crazy thing...
Yeah, shout out again to The Hill. And once again, Joe Concha for writing this. Thanks for putting this out there.
Yeah, but look at it. It's got 19,204 shares. And we've always known that bread and circuses sells more, that the gossip column sells more, and TMZ gets more views than C-SPAN does. So I'm not out there lamenting that we as citizens don't take our roles more seriously and X, Y, or Z thing. But there is a point. Like, there is a point where the disproportionate attention to just childlike pro wrestling-ish, I don't even want to say nuttiness because it sounds too boomer, but like the Hill's covering this.
Again, the reason why I brought this up is because functionally you could say whatever you want, like American, not even American, professional wrestling, the fake wrestling, right? It is people lying to you to get you to buy tickets. I functionally am failing to see how it separates out. Politicians and media people will just lie to you to get your vote. I don't see the difference. Because, I mean, it's just, I'm not too far into it, but reading this article today, I was just like, I couldn't believe this. I'm like, why? First of all, why is this what senators are doing? Talking around who can wrestle who? One. Two, why are they writing about this in the media? But again, it extends past. This is what keeps happening. I mean, the last few weeks, things have gotten so out of hand with the lies. It's just obvious they're all lying. There's no. It's almost like we were talking about before the show started. It's almost like in the 80s and 90s when it became obvious wrestling's fake. Just it's fake. Like, this isn't Hulk Hogan. The Hulkster isn't actually body slamming him against his will. He's helping him do it. Right? It feels like a tipping point with politicians where it's like, is this real or fake? They're just lying about everything all the time. I vividly remember this. And you know what? He worked them. Michael Bloomberg got him. He's probably going to get away with this. Do you guys remember we were talking about Bloomberg dumping money into the election? I remember Bloomberg saying people are going to be paid through the... Actually, I don't remember Bloomberg saying that, because I remember people in the media writing that Bloomberg would be paying his employees, people working through his campaign, through the general. Or maybe
no, it was through November.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the fall, right? Well, it appears, no. And not only was that not true, in the motion, Bloomberg's lawyers wrote that the aides did not meet any of the Bloomberg's attorneys wrote in their Monday motion to dismiss that the former field organizers who brought the class action lawsuit earlier this year signed offer letters and were provided employee handbooks that specifically stated they were at-will workers and could be terminated at any time. This is after they alleged they were promised to be paid through the general election. And so it's funny. No, they got had. I don't think Bloomberg ever promised that. I think people in the media were just lying and saying that was true for some reason. It appears the actual fine print said that was never the case. And in the motion,
well, we even reported that from 3 or 4 sources when we were reading about
that was the story at the time. That was
gentrification of politics. So there was never actually hard paper on there that he had to pay them through November.
No, but again, it's just people in the media were lying. I mean, I got to admit, I didn't spend 50 minutes pulling up all the lies, but it is feeling that it's feeling. I don't know a better word to describe it, but it's like the lies are getting so out of hand and the nonsense. And the other thing is there's lying, but the other part of it, we talked a lot about this. The performative nature of politics is also getting out of hand. There is so many performative acts put on by these politicians and I get it's part of the show because functionally it is the same thing. Instead of trying to sell a wrestling match, trying to sell an election, but it's the same thing. You're trying to get people out to vote. They have to come to vote against someone. They're not just going to tune in to watch some guy fight some guy. They have to tune in to watch Joe Biden, Obama's one and only Obama's, top son going head to head with the evil Donald Trump. But it's getting so ridiculous now that I legitimately, I watch these press conferences, I watch these news reports, and I'm like, these people are just lying. There's nothing that are saying they're true. And what do you know? We find out weeks or days later that it is all lies every single time. I remember when Bloomberg was allegedly this ultra billionaire going to pay all these people, and now he's filing a motion saying, actually, if they read their employee handbook, they would have found out they were at-will employees that could be. So not only am I not keeping you through the fall, you're at-will, I can terminate you if you want. Now we'll see what actually comes out of this. If he's just, again, we'll see if his lawyers are just lying, and maybe that isn't the case. Who knows? But it is hilarious to me because that's functionally what wrestling is. That's you put on a show, you put on a whole song and dance, and you lie to people, and they give you money for tickets. I don't see how it's functionally becoming different than the media and politicians putting on a song and dance and just lying to people for votes. And actually, when it comes to some of these media companies, literally like subscriptions and tickets. That's what they're trying to sell you. Like, what do you think? By the way, you think Donald Trump, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. Yeah. Donald Trump had Bobby Lashley defeat Umaga, I believe, in WrestleMania to shave Vince McMahon's head, the owner of WWE. Donald Trump himself went into the ring and shaved the man's head. And a lot of the stuff Donald Trump does comes right out of that. And I don't know. It's just bothering me more and more because it's getting to the point, and the same thing happened with real pro wrestling about 20, 30 years ago, where people just are getting frustrated because I think Vince McMahon himself used the term, we're tired of insulting your intelligence. I gotta admit, watching the news, I feel like my intelligence is getting insulted every single time. So I wish I had more relevant news stories. Wish we'd dive through a bunch of different articles. But like I said, I don't want to insult your guys' intelligence by just feeding you lies that they're getting fed to me by the media people, because it's crazy. Every single day, it's some other hoax, some other sham story that just goes away. Just, whatever, we made this stuff up. Because we made it up to sell papers. We made it up to get votes. We made it up to make you register. We didn't actually care if any of it was real or not.
Yeah. So I really like how you said that there is a point where it becomes insulting to the intelligence. And I really want to see what the data is on media trust. I know it's really easy. Right now we can look up media approval ratings, right? But every once in a while they do a unique sub-study that talks about media trust levels. And they'll actually ask a question in these, Pew Research polls or Quinnipiac or any of these other researching organizations will ask actually what's your trust level. And I've mentioned this before on the other stream, but I don't know the exact year, but it was like throughout the 70s and the 80s, for like nearly a decade, the most trusted man in America was actually an anchor. I mean, Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in America, more trusted than the president, than the secretary of HUD, than the CEO of the Boy Scouts of America. I mean, the most trusted dude was Walter Cronkite, right? And now we've gotten to a point where ever since I was a kid, I've always thought, wait, no, the media kind of spins it. By the time I was in junior high and high school, I'm like, they're incompetent at best. And by college age, I was like, these people are liars. And I think the conservatives pushed that a little bit before the general public caught on to it. And I think that's why the fake news moniker of Donald Trump spread so far and so fast. But at this point, I just want to know who actually trusts the media.
Well, hold on one second. Everyone does. Everyone trusts the media, unfortunately. They pick the media they trust and how they trust them, but everyone does. Everyone's got the media is all a bunch of lies. Well, though, hold on a minute. Why are you talking about that guy that way? Well, wait a minute. Not everyone trusts something in the media. It's kind of hard to exist in a world where you trust literally nothing. It'd be weird. Be a cold, dark world, trusting nothing anyone tells you. Everyone trusts something. The only problem is they're all kind of lying some way because I don't think necessarily, I'm not trying to say people are evil. Sometimes you do just have an election to win. Sometimes you do just have papers to sell. I have subscriptions to sell. I have ads to sell. That's my job. Because this is something I want to talk about too, as far as politicians go. Like, are we looking at politicians as like great legislators? Because to me, a good politician wins his election.
No, they're good fundraisers. They're good fundraisers.
They'll just drop. You think Amy McGrath's a good fundraiser? Talk about her in a second. It was in Kentucky.
Well, I sent you a link at least. So before we get off the subject of media trust, you got a graph.
Okay, but even then, like you see, it's like they'll dump money on people anyway. It's not about fundraising. They just are election winners. That's really it. That's all a politician does. They win elections because
and they win because of the kayfabe, because they're pushing the narrative.
Well, who cares? Here's the thing. Here's the thing, and this is what I'm trying to get to. Who cares why they win? They don't. Americans trust the media. Mass media edges down to 41%.
Well, if you look at the graph, I think it is trending downward. There's the graph right there. I mean, that is a slow and steady decline.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah,
it's trending downward, but it would have to fall another point or two, another 2 points, I believe, to be where it was in 2016. It actually bumped up. I mean, to me, what this graph says is that media hit a 5-year high in 2017 as far as 18 as far as media trust goes.
Well, no, but look, they haven't been above 50%.
No, I'm saying
since 2005, and they were always above it.
It was trending down and it bounced up in 2018. What was 2018?
Well, its highest point in the past 20 years.
What was the significance of 2018 though, as far as the last few years go?
The blue wave.
Yeah, the media wanted to find a way to the media, but like there was a really targeted, focused midterm because the 2016 election did so great they couldn't wait for the rematch down the line in 2020. They had to get you out to the booths again, and it works. People trusted the media for a year, and you'll notice it immediately tanked the next year. It's probably even lower now because it works. They don't do this stuff because they're stupid and evil. They just do it because it works and it gets them what they want. That's why they do it. That's why anyone does it.
Yeah.
The tricking people in wrestling isn't to be like, aha, these morons, I fooled them. It's just to get their money. You don't really care why. Politicians aren't like sitting at home like, oh, these people think I think this, but I have got one over. They just go home and say, cool, I got elected. Now I can, depending on what you got elected for, if you got elected for Senate or Congress, geez, you got what, a week? Take a deep breath and you're back on the campaign trail? I mean, some of these Congress people basically have to be AOC's never not been campaigning.
Yeah.
She's never. I mean, you come over as an insurgent primary of the guy, you kind of have to be campaigning. But yeah, I think that's what I think is funny. I wonder if you can even chart that. Let's look. So 2000 media trust is at 51. 2002 looks like it had edged up a bit, and then you go into the election year 2004, it goes down because people figure out they're being lied to because the media ramps up the lying to get you out to vote.
Okay, so what I'm curious about, what I've been kind of searching though, is that humans are very, very smart, and they're good at pattern recognition. That's actually something that humans do extremely well, even more so than machines and algorithms, is rapid pattern recognition. And maybe I'm not quite as cynical as you. I think humans are smart enough to start recognizing, wait, now these are the same guys that lied to me, and oh yeah, they're saying Donald Trump's going to lose on a landslide again. Well, they said that during 2016, and guess what, he won. Oh wait, they lied about me when I was in the newspaper and I saw that. Oh, they lied about BLM, they lied about this, they lied about that. You know what I'm saying? Sooner or later, if they're lying at a frequent enough rate, pattern recognition on behalf of humans has to kick in. And I think there's proof here. I mean, going down 10 percentage points in 15 years on average is a drastically huge hit to credibility. And I think it's just going to go down even more, especially after this kind of nonsense, because we are living a psychosis that once the dust settles and people are stopped freaking out about their next paycheck because they can't go to work and things normalize a little bit, they're going to look back and they're going to say, holy crap. All of these shutdowns, all of this poor legislation, all of that writing, at the end of the day, it all boils down to what? The media lying and sensationalizing something.
Okay, but here's the thing. Like I said, you can't just say people...
And they'll change their habits,
okay,
bro.
But so there's people who legitimately don't watch or believe any news. I bristle. No. They have their network, their reporter, their anchor, their publication, their whatever they trust. You have to. I don't see why bother reading news if it's just all lies. It's got to be the one thing, which, by the way, that hook worked in wrestling for many years. Those people that are like, well, it's fake, but that guy, he really, if he needed to. Like, the same thing. Well, journalists lie, but this one or this publication, like, they're still a little bit on the up and up.
Well, there's individual journalists that I trust.
Sure, but I mean, like I said, I don't see the benefit for them to be, like, 100% truthful. It doesn't sell papers. It really doesn't. I don't know what to say about it.
But can't you get to a point where the market demand is for somebody that's actually just dry and says how things are?
Tell you what, I think a lot of people have lost millions of dollars betting on that time and time again.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair enough to say that it's that as much as we all lament that why isn't news better, if we actually look at the news we want to watch and the headlines that we click on, we go for the more sensationalist stuff and more of the clickbaity stuff. So yeah, maybe that's a problem that's just built straight into humanity. But I think people do get sick of it. I think they get sick of it and they right their ship for at least small periods of time.
But what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it look like when you get sick of it? What does it look like?
You stop altering a behavior based upon what you read in a headline and don't let yourself get as ramped up while reading things. And you really start checking preconceived notions. You just start exercising more functions that get exercised when you don't trust somebody. So maybe when you open up a newspaper and you read some sensationalist headline of, unarmed cop shoots X, Y, or Z person, instead of thinking, oh crap, it's happening again, you think, oh, well, hold on a second. I know the media lies to me. Let me see in what details they suggest. And before I develop opinion, I am going to go to another source and check that opinion because I know I have to.
Okay, but like doing their job for them, exactly.
Exactly.
But that's I don't think people have the hours in the day to literally do that all the time. They have to just trust something. You have to. That's what that would seriously be like going to a butcher and being like, I want this cut. And being like, hold on, let me just get back there and cut it. It's like, what are you here for, man? Like, what the hell? Like, sometimes I pay a monthly subscription to a paper to hopefully trust them. I think ultimately you gotta just pick something and trust it, and you gotta just hope. Because there's not enough time in the day to independently suss out and verify every story out there.
Yeah, that's
There's
fair.
literally people whose job it is to do that, and I'm paying them money for them to do it for me. Like what is this? Like, that's what's crazy to me. I agree. There are people who are functionally just abandoning the premise of media, but then you can't. Somebody has to have the job of doing this to get the information. Not everyone has the time or the connection to sit around and call like the morgue all day, call the police station all day, call City Hall all day, try to get documents for you. Like, that's not what regular people do. They have to rely on someone to do that. But at the same time, if they give you just the facts, it's boring and sometimes you don't want to hear it, and it loses them money, and they know this.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's been the greatest heel in the history of news media. Do you know how many hours of media have been watched and how many papers have been sold? Just people saying, "Boo Trump." Like, it's been like one of the biggest people talking about. Like, there's a media boom. It created small little cottage industries. The Krasenstein brothers made like millions of dollars allegedly. Who knows what actually made? But like it's benefiting people. I don't know. I feel like the lie, they want to trick you into thinking that they're all really upset about the legislating going on behind the scenes. But like legislating, for example, I remember someone asked early on our stream if that was interesting. So a couple days ago, we were talking about the Trump administration had some change in the Americans with Disabilities Act as far as how it covered gender expression or something.
No, it wasn't the American. It was the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
No, I think you're talking about the Supreme Court ruling. I'm talking about what Donald Trump did a few days ago. But then,
oh, okay, yes.
my
I'm
point exactly. So the Trump administration, something like that. But then, like the Supreme Court, which Donald Trump was stacking in but they ruled probably against him. Because, like in real life, there is still actual things that function normally and work. Everything isn't this hysterical media game that got people freaking out about. Like, the media could just it is so easy to just take little things here and there and color someone's mind on something. Especially when you trust these people to tell you what's going on. It just keeps happening over and over and over again. It's one of my favorite ones. I want to get back to really quickly. Here's an article from Politico, right? Insurgent threatens to derail McGrath-McConnell showdown in Kentucky. Because we talked about the other day, State Rep Charles Booker. He has raised some more money, but it's still, Amy McGrath was the one tabbed by the Big D, the Senate Democrat Election Committee. They gave her $40 million. Did they ask anyone if Amy McGrath was the candidate they actually wanted? No. Because what do you know? Charles Booker has gotten endorsements from, I believe, the major local publications, like I believe they have it listed right here, the Courier-Journal. And another one, I believe another paper endorsed him as well. However, I think they mentioned in this article that the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee is still backing McGrath, and there isn't enough polling data to know just how tight the race has become. Why is that? Because all the polls, if you just read the polls, you would think she already won the primary and is running against Mitch McConnell. You would think she's +1 on Mitch McConnell, according to some of these polls. They don't ask people the questions they don't want to hear the answers to. Yeah. If that's the answer, people want Charles Booker, we're just not asking that question. We're asking them, once Amy McGrath wins, are you going to vote for her over Mitch McConnell? They don't ask the questions they don't want to get answers to because it's that easy. They just ask then the things they do want to get answers to, they ask those questions all the time, nonstop, every day. Because they know that when I say they, it's just that's how media works. That's how you sell papers.
So those of you that are just tuning in right now, we're actually talking about this incredible Twitter feud, shall we call it, that has basically turned into a WWE promo. I say WWF because I grew up in the times of WWF. But anyway, it's become a WWE promo.
Just performative nonsense.
Yeah, just performative nonsense. What Ron Perlman, Ted Cruz literally said.
Look at the headline. Look at that headline. What does that even mean?
Oh, I'm reading the actual Twitter battle on Twitter right now.
Look how gibberish. You try to. It does feel like a legitimate adult trying to sum up pro wrestling. You just are like, I guess Ted Cruz challenges the actor Ron Perlman to wrestle Jim Jordan after attack on Gates. There's 4 people in that headline.
I'm just offering a review right here that Ted Cruz literally just said from his blue check-marked account. Listen, Hellboy. So first off, he's not even addressing Ron Perlman as his shoot name, if I'm getting this terminology correct.
Forget the terminology and that stupid nonsense. Like, this is my question is.
No, he's addressing him by just a fake character name.
But
so
why
listen,
does any
Hellboy.
This matters. The problem I'm saying is, why are we talking? Like, why I'm upset that this is being written about.
Well, no, I get it's an indictment of our culture and of the Hill and of anybody that took this seriously. But he says, listen, Hellboy, you talk a good game when you've got Hollywood makeup and stuntmen, but I'll bet you $10K to the non-political charity of your choice that you couldn't last 5 minutes in the wrestling ring with Jim Jordan without getting pinned. You up for it? Or does your publicist say too risky? I think this is below anybody that's a senator. I'll just be honest with you. I think it's below, but I'm loving it because this is what we vote for and this is all we deserve, guys. I'm sorry, but Donald Trump is the troll in chief, and he was able to troll his way through our celebrity and media-fueled culture that loves this crap, and we reward it. And Ron Perlman just responds and says, wait, is this the Ted Cruz? Holy SHIT, man, is this the same little guy that let Donnie call his wife a dog and his father an assassin and now kisses his A? Oh, yo, can I get your autograph, man? And then finally says, why don't you go you and me? I'll give $50K to BLM and you can keep all the taxpayer money you were thinking of spending. So we literally have two dudes just running promos now for a match. I think, Cody, what if we literally just did start having politicians do just wrestling matches, man? Like, why? There was a reason why in the old days, send your champion, you know?
Why not just have them do what they're doing right now, which is argue on Twitter for our amusement? That's what this is. That's my whole point is this, is that the entire American political discussion, what you see on Twitter, like the internet discussion of politics, it's all a gigantic game. And there's people that are influencers of it, like the big media companies, like there's people like Ron Perlman, they just throw nonsense out here. Because it gets attention, it gets clicks. They know, like there's legitimately people that use the exact same like psychology wrestlers use. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to say this thing, and it will anger people. And because it will anger people, it will generate a lot of attention. In that attention, there'll be people that will trying to attack me, and people trying to attack me will create this kind of miniature dividing line between the reader of whose side are you on, them or mine. And then it works, and you grow your subscriber count, and you sell the people books, and you make money. It's all about making money, getting votes, which is like, I think, but the thing is I'm not trying to say it's like some like right breakthrough, right? But I think sometimes it is simple as that's actually the game. Like you can't win an election with no votes and no money. You just can't do it. You can't run a paper if no one reads it. I just think things are getting out of hand. It's getting to the point now where it feels like, I do feel like they're insulting our intelligence. The way they talk to us, the way they lie, and the way they just change their minds. It is feeling a little bit like, do you think I'm stupid is what I feel when I'm reading it. Like, I read this article. Do they think I'm stupid? Is that what's going on here? Like, yeah, I'm sure any of this is going to happen. I'm sure Ron Perlman, however old he is going to wrestle a sitting senator. I'm sure he's a congressman. I'm sure it's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, it's just to put some butts in the seats, I guess, metaphorically. Tell you what, it'll get some people digging in. It'll get some people going to Ron Perlman's next movie, watching Sons of Anarchy to support Ron Perlman, and it's going to have some people coming out to vote for Matt Gaetz and Ted Cruz, because that was the point. That was the thing, and it works. And it just...
I've got a great quote here.
I just think it's just spiraling a little bit out of control right now.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but Jay Perrin 001, I haven't seen that name before. Jay Perrin, you got to join. This is great. This is the quote of the day for me right here. Said, quote, professional wrestling had come full circle to its honest origins by at last moving the responsibility for deception off of the shoulders of the performers and into the willing minds of the audience, end quote. So I'll just repeat that. The professional wrestling had come full circle to its honest origins by at least moving the responsibility for deception off the shoulders of the performers and into the willing minds of the audience. You literally could cross out professional wrestling and put politics there.
That quote's a much more succinct way of putting my point. Same thing, yeah. You'll notice, they're like, why do we have to convince you or lie to you? You're supposed to believe us. It's
so how do we train our own minds? How do we train our own minds to not believe the kayfabe?
I've said this before. Like I said, who cares? Enough of that. But
what?
I don't know, and no one does. I don't think anyone fully appreciated what was going to happen when we moved to this completely nonverbal form of communication with no real body language through text, and it was going to dominate the political landscape and every little minute thing that ever existed. I mean, there's a video game I like, and they talk about this a little. It was actually fascinating. It's from like 10 years ago, and they're really on the nose about this, but it's just the idea there's like this oppressive weight of everything, every little minute picture and thing anyone has ever said that exists, and it just points and tastes it makes it impossible to go around. It poisons your mind. Anything anyone's ever said, there forever. I think we thought that would be great, and we're finding out it's terrible. It's actually awful to have every single thing anyone ever said available forever. Because it's confusing and it muddles. And what it does is it lets you make your own mind about everything. Just be like, I've seen enough to know.
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean? I've seen enough. So
You can choose your own reality.
Everyone's
right?
seeing it. But there's enough stuff out there. I think it was funny. There was an interesting way of putting it, though. Just the idea that every little single insignificant thing, permanent for eternity, is that good or bad? I think it's bad. I think we're seeing it. And we've seen things. Mind you, what did this, why is Ron Perlman even threatening to wrestle Ted Cruz? Why? Seriously, do you even know the why anymore? Things have gotten so far from the why. You know what they're talking about originally?
In the Ron Perlman v. Ted Cruz
In this
thing?
recent Twitter beef. You know where it started from?
It had to have been something with Jim Jordan.
Actually, it wasn't all.
It wasn't?
It was some ridiculous performative nonsense about whether U.S. soccer athletes should be able to have their performative political statements done by kneeling for the anthem.
Oh,
That's where it started. Okay. And then Matt Gaetz, in his form of performative politics, said, we shouldn't even have a national team. And then Ron Perlman's like, you're ugly. And then Ted Cruz is like, I bet you Jim Jordan could beat you up. But that's actually what we've seen now, and I don't know. It's bothering me. I would like to be able to read news more and go through the news media and not feel like a bunch of people are just tricking to me, lying to me, and trying to get me to buy into just weird things that I don't know what they're talking about. But that's all this stuff. I don't know. I normally like to have more, news stuff to go through to hear us through an article, but I've been trying to look, and the article came today, and it just the most insulting thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going. It's the weirdest thing, man. Like, anyone notice, like, going around with the coronavirus reopening? I, like, legitimately am just, like, it's like my head's spinning. It's like, is coronavirus still, like, a thing? I mean, like, the way it happened in L.A., we reopened officially, or soft reopening was, like, the Friday when the protests turned into riots for 4 or 5 days. So it's, like, people were protesting, I think, like, yesterday and the day before, and it's just, like, I don't, like, what are things reopening? Like, I've been to a couple restaurants just being like, guess stuff's open again. Oh no, they're doing stuff weird. Like, some stores are open, some are, it's just like the most confusing thing. Do I wear a mask outside now? I don't know. Are you supposed to wear masks outside? Are they saying they help? I know I have to wear masks inside, but like, are we supposed to stand 6 feet apart? Do we have to stand on the dots? It's just confusing. And really, no one seems to have any answer on any of this stuff. Yeah. I can't even get a straight answer. Are we indeed spiking? Is coronavirus indeed less deadly than we thought? Is hydroxychloroquine indeed dangerous or safe? I've gotten 4 answers on that one. I believe there was a study that said it was dangerous. The study was refuted. The FDA had like emergency permission, and I think they just revoked the emergency permissions today.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to believe or trust? And I don't know. It's just, it's getting frustrating now to where it's like, there's the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and the entire film, the 2 main characters are on drugs, and I can't stand the movie because I'm like, can there just be 5 minutes where someone sits down and talks straight, please? Just 5 minutes where someone comes out and I'm like, wow, I think I understand what this person's trying to say. I think there's a sober mind in there, not some crazy person lying to me all the time. But no, we don't get that.
Yeah.
Even the people who go on TV and give you the nice stern look on their face, they're just lying. It's crazy. I remember when Rachel Maddow had the weird, she was like, we got him. We got Trump's tax returns, just lying because she knew damn well what she had. And it was like 1 page. It didn't say anything. It was like 1 page that said that Trump, at the very minimum, was required to pay a lot in taxes. And who knows if he did. That was all she had. But she was up there ranting and raving saying she's got the proof. It's just to get you to watch. They don't care. Man. Here's the thing. Once you've watched, they've got your money. They don't care.
And it almost makes you wonder. It's like this is why some of these slogans like abolish the police actually get somewhere, because when you see such grievous overreaches, you think there has to be some kind of punishment. Now, you'd never actually want to institute punishments for good cops for putting themselves out there in the way, but you can't react to these injustices and not think there has to be a punishment for the bad actors in this arena. And in the media, like, I can't even believe that it occurs to me to think, why isn't there punishments for people that purposely misreport just to try and seed contention? Because it's such
America has principles, and we do.
Yeah, I know we believe in freedom of the press,
actually,
but it's like,
hold on. That's it. I wanted to talk about this, and I thank you for bringing this up.
Okay.
Today, I was getting my daily dose of people Bristol want to say this don't care. Chinese state-sponsored media from the South China Morning Post, and they had a fascinating little thing. Right now, I'll pull the article up for you guys. In the Philippines, a woman who produces, or she edits a paper. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Here we go. Oh, sorry. I got some outdated info. So here we go. I want to show you guys. This people asking, what can we do? This is the problem. When you give the government, sometimes we're in a jam because it's actually just a dilemma. It actually is like, damn, yeah, what do you do? Sorry, I'm taking a second to resize this for you guys. But I want to walk through the story a little bit because it's really interesting. And to your point, yeah, there's got to be something, right? Well,
I think you just have to enforce libel and slander laws better or something.
Check this out. Philippines journalist Maria Reza found guilty of cyber libel in latest blow to free press.
Okay, well, there's a high threshold to prove libel. What is it?
A Hong Kong business. We're going to go through it. Embattled Philippines journalist Maria Reza was found guilty of cyber libel Monday in a case she and press freedom groups have described as a politically motivated prosecution by the Duterte government. I can never pronounce the guy's names correctly. Ressa was arrested early last year in the Manila officers of Rappler, that's the name of the publication, the online news outlet she founded in 2012, which has gained prominence for its unflinching coverage of President Rodrigo Duterte and his brutal war on drugs. The case hinged on a story written in 2012, 8 years ago, which alleged that businessman Wilfredo Kang had links to illegal drugs and human trafficking. However, the article was published by Rappler 2 years before the new cyber libel laws came into effect in the Philippines. Prosecutors argued
so then it's
that a correction made
out
to
of bounds. Yeah.
Made to the law constitute a republication and meant it could be considered as cyber libel. Let me read that again. Prosecutors have argued that a correction made to the story after the law passed constituted a republication and meant it could be considered as cyber libel. That wasn't the issue. I don't know the official. It's probably the correction saying maybe we overstepped our bounds. Maybe them trying to walk it back, and that made it back. So on Monday, the court found that both Ressa and Rappler staffer Reynaldo Santos Jr., who wrote the story, guilty of the offense, according to a news organization. They face a minimum of 6 months in prison and up to 7 years, according to the verdict, though they are likely to be bailed when they appeal the judgment. Speaking after the verdict, Ressa said it was not unexpected. We will keep fighting, she said. I appeal to you, the journalists in the room, the Philippines who have been listening, to protect your rights. We are meant to be a cautionary tale. We are meant to make you afraid. So I appeal again, not be afraid, because if you don't use your rights, you will lose them. There was, I was talking about, people legitimately were going on TV and publishing articles about, some of the weird Trump conspiracies that were lies.
Yeah.
Just accusing people of things they did not do. They were lies.
Well, and we remember the whole thing with the Covington kids.
Do you think, though, that anyone should be in jail for that? Because now we're seeing in the Philippines, they're going back 8 years, saying you updated that article 8 years ago, being critical of someone without the right proof. It's libel. You're going to prison for potentially 7 years.
Okay, so here's the deal. With freedom of the press, look, you'll never meet a bigger free speech guy than me. And I think that freedom of the press and free speech literally has to be basically nearly unmitigated, except for specific cases of libel and slander that can be proven. And I'm fine with it being an extremely high mark to get there, or else we just be throwing those around.
We have now.
But we've gotten to a point where it's so high that it's never achieved. If the Covington kids couldn't get their case, the threshold for libel is too high.
But they forced a massive settlement out of court. In America,
no, they lost the criminal case, and then in the civil case, at that point, I think it was criminal what was done to them.
So you do think someone should have gone to jail over that news coverage from CNN?
If you're, let me see.
Because remember, it's right, there's no bar for journalists. You can't disbar a journalist. They can just write anywhere they want because it's freedom of the press.
It does almost make this is where I see a lot of third-party solutions possibly coming in. Where, for example, I think it would be great if, in the wake of people not losing trust in media, if there was a certification organization that's similar to Energy Star for computers or similar to scuba diving licenses like PADI and SSI, if there was like a certification for journalists. There's this thing called T1000 certification in accounting, where if you don't have the T1000 certification, oftentimes people don't want to hire you because there's insurances that say, hey, if you hire a T1000 certified accountant, we'll give you reduced rates on insurance and reduced rates on X, Y, or Z fees that we pay, because I know those guys are held to a higher echelon of a higher echelon of transparency and ethics, okay, because they've been vetted. I would love to see a third-party certification for journalists where, okay, look, let's call it the PWIC or something, okay? The PWIC certification program. Anybody can get certified to be a PWIC, but you're going to have to get continuing education hours, and you will have to commit to certain levels of vetting at least X, Y, or Z. Like there will be this rubric put out.
Who runs the
it will be a private organization.
Okay, but run by who?
By
aliens?
No,
by stools with no opinions, or by a person with opinions?
But it's just
biases.
No, it's just like scuba. Well, no.
It's actually not like scuba diving, because you know what happens if your scuba diving equipment doesn't work right? You die and you get the real lawsuits coming. You know what happens if your publication is wrong?
No, but it's just
Nothing.
like the APA. You know how we all have rules for bibliographies where we say, okay, cool, I can't stop you from having an opinion, but I can at least force you to reference what your sources are so other people can go and look at it.
And if my source is just someone who prefers to remain anonymous so they can speak freely,
then you just would
by the way, you literally didn't include sources, and guess what? That's the source that's included. Someone who spoke a source familiar, speaking under the condition of anonymity, is what you'll hear all the time. What's wrong with that?
I've actually talked about that, and I think it would be interesting. And somebody suggested, this is not my suggestion, I thought of something similar. But somebody had told me, who had a journalist background, and I can't remember what forum I was watching. I was watching a forum on YouTube where the guy said, I would be okay with anonymous sources if somebody could give me a secondary form of authentication. Authentication, where they said, for example, an anonymous source under conditions of anonymity showing files taken from the Oval Office, or showing files screenshotted from the press briefing or something, you know what I'm saying, that would weed out somewhat the ability of news reporters to just go wild with hearsay, but yet still be now the problem is,
report hearsay? Why can't they say, look, I'm a journalist, I don't actually work for this company,
well, then
don't
call it fact. Just say we've heard.
A lot of times they don't. They just say, look, someone told me. Here's the thing.
I'm okay with somebody told me, as long as you just say
is,
somebody told me and don't say that's the actual headline.
But the thing is, you look at these people are smart. That's how they write them. They write them to say that this is what someone told me. I'm just telling you what they told me. That's how it's actually always phrased. A source familiar told me this. I'm telling you that's what they told me. They don't.
Yeah, but you can have a sterile set of rules. For example, you could say, for example, that okay, if you're going to be a PWIC 1000 certified journalist, okay.
And what if you're not? What if I'm?
Then your organization carries less credibility, and it's just like not having the Better Business Bureau.
Hold on a second. So
it's like the Better Business Bureau,
Okay, but
bro.
1 second. Let's say I live in Seattle right now, and there's stuff going on in the the Chaz or the Chop or all kinds of weird names, right? And let's say I want to just start a blog and start writing, and I want to tell people what's actually going on here. But I'm not a 55, 57 certified journalist. What happens to me?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. You're going to rely a lot more on video where people can draw their own conclusions.
Does it mean, though, that big media companies can just publish lies against me and say, this guy's not a certified journalist. Here at CNN, we're certified journalists. By the way, what they do now, they basically act like if you don't have a cable deal, you're not real news. That's what they act right now. I mean, how would that get better?
It is, well, first off, if you want to be a journalist, go out and get that freaking certification. It should be, I'm not saying it should be difficult, but I'm saying it should be easy enough that people can get it, but it would weed out losers.
Will it be free? So my freedom as an American to speak freely and just be like a citizen journalist stripped from me because I now have to pay the government for my rights.
No, it wouldn't be governmental. It'd be private.
But I don't understand. I don't understand some private certification recognized by whom? What if it's only recognized by giant fake news corporations? That's like, what if that's like the badge of fake news?
Bro, there's not a single governing body of scuba diving. There's not a single governing body.
People can die.
The worldwide, they can die. And there's still not there's no license required from the government for scuba diving.
Here's the thing.
It's all done by PADI, done by SSI. There's a handful.
Apples and oranges, man. It's because nobody dies if I fib a little bit in my publication to sell more papers.
That's not true. There's tons of times
Butterfly
in people's
effect,
lives.
I hear it. But what I'm saying is, it's not literally your tank leaked and you drowned to death, and it could be proven that I gave you the faulty tank. Dude, people are covering their asses. Someone could drown at the bottom of the ocean. They're not covering their asses when someone accidentally votes for the wrong politician because they got lied to. There's no...
Okay, but if a riot breaks out because of a
why
headline
do I
that
have
was
to make
published...
the freedom of the press argument to you right now? I don't get it. You don't believe in freedom of the press?
No, that's why I'm saying there's not a bigger freedom of the press person for me. And I would never want to stop somebody from being able to report just as a raw citizen. But I'm saying in order to create a higher trust, and I think there's a place for third-party private certifications that add credibility to somebody.
What about this? I have a great idea.
Okay.
What if a company decided to hire a bunch of journalists, and they were going to say the proof that these journalists are credible is that we hired them, and then they got these journalists to write articles, and they compile those articles into a publication, and then they distribute that publication and put ads on it, and they say our third-party mark that these journalists have been vetted and verified is New York Times or Newsweek or USA Today. I think you just recreated a newspaper. You just recreated Fox News and MSNBC. You just recreated them.
Okay, but look, for example, the NAACP, before they sold out, you know what I'm saying, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, before they became the bully. Like, things start out as movements, and then they become businesses, and then they become rackets. In the movement, in the movement time period, they're actually fulfilling a good function and doing it well. And it's like a 50-year cycle. So all I'm suggesting is that I start my organization.
So what I mean, like you just recreated the New York Times. I think that was the idea of consolidating papers back then. It was like, look, there's so many papers you don't know to believe. You know you can believe us because we are an independent third-party organization called New York Times or Washington Post that brings only certain journalists that we verify by hiring and publishing.
It worked. And look, it worked, and they were legitimate, and they were credible, and they did good journalism according to the standards of journalism until they started selling out in the mid-90s.
Okay,
and so they started in the 60s. They got freaking Nixon. They spoke truth to power. They're the reason the Watergate tapes got ousted with those
Nixon?
two WAPO guys.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, but
I saw the movie with Robert Redford, which I'm sure is 100% factual.
I'm sorry, but I think it's a little bit suspicious that the entire... I don't know. All I know is I do know this. It was a fact that Richard Nixon was openly combative with several people in the intelligence agency. I believe Nixon was also a noted anti-Semite and was very much on the outside of...
Wait, he was a legit open Semite?
Anti-Semite, I believe. I don't think he was an open Semite.
Oh, no, sorry. He was a legit open anti-Semite? Wow.
I don't think he was like loud.
I never got that vibe.
But he had problems with... He was, as far as I know, just from looking into the... Anyway, my larger point was... I think this is what happens. There was some legit political beef going on in the background, and they tap some self-important journalists on the shoulder and say, hey, you want to break this so the FBI doesn't have to, so our hands aren't on it? Because that's basically what these organizations do, is they legitimately take people. Dude, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure, and I've heard this said multiple times, I've also read into it, that the people that were caught planting the wires at Watergate Hotel were Cuban nationals that were using the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Yeah.
They were like literal government assets out there doing this stuff. Yeah, I'm sure some journalists just happened to break the case.
Look, I'm sure they spoke truth to power.
Himself in the back for 40 years because of that nonsense. Yeah,
that's true. The Washington Post still talks about it.
Because the government got rid of a president they didn't like. Which they tried doing the same thing to Trump. It's hilarious. It's the exact same thing they were doing. Where
and I got to tell you.
The CIA and the FBI started trapping people, putting them in phony nonsense. Because, the government, dude, they're not all in harmony. They definitely view themselves as above us, it seems like, but they're not all in harmony.
So we got some great comments here. By the way, guys, start super chatting us whenever you want with some really good questions here. We're ready to rock and roll. Looks like we got this out of our system. Dan Lawrence says something funny. He says, I haven't tuned into a stream where Cardin and Cody agreed. Hey, maybe that's the vibe we're going for.
We mostly agree most streams, though.
Yeah, I'd say we come around.
Like I can't think of things
I talk sense into you.
There's not that many things we like legitimately. I feel like super at odds. It's just kind of like we have vaguely different interpretations of them.
So anyway, that one's pretty funny. And then also great comment here from John LeMay or Lame, I'm not sure, but says, I think eventually independent channels will gather enough moderates to overthrow mainstream media. I actually have faith in my fellow being, and I think new media is going to be the solution. I think ultimately if our channel can get big enough that we have reporters and we actually have just our own standards and our own ethics of reporting that we require from people that we're going to, like, I would hire somebody to go into the Chaz and I would say, look, dude, if you can just live stream and tell me what you see and just describe what you see as best you can without editorializing X, Y, Z, A, B, or C, and just saying straight the facts and not saying something unless you can get video or audio of it. I think there would be a thirst for that kind of media. I think there would be a market for that kind of media. And with the business models now that we have on social media, as long as those companies weren't going to directly censor the content, I think it could spread like wildfire and could do well. So I agree that I think the future is going to be new media. What? You had something to say, Cody?
I mean,
I heard the intake of air there.
You're going to see a general decentralization, right? But
yeah,
here's the problem. I do not believe a human being, at least using the English language, could live stream an event and talk about it and be objective.
You don't think it lives? Well, in certain situations, it may not be sensitive.
You literally can't. Like three people can look at somebody light a trash can on fire and have three honest to God different reactions of what they think's really happening in front of them. Now we can suss through whose reality is the true reality, or let them all exist. I think, right? I don't know what else you can do.
We can suss through whose reality is the true reality. Whose reality is the true reality?
Yeah, or just let them exist. Let someone say, hey, when you see them throw that rock through that building, you say, that makes me feel a certain way. And then when they see someone do it, they say, that makes me feel a certain way. And then we all have to understand that, I guess some people like Pepsi and some people like... It's just this complete intellectual intolerance that's been brewing, I think is a little bit spurred on by the media. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
How dare they oppose my thoughts? Like, damn, who the fuck are you, man? I apologize for... But it's like, I see people sometimes, and it's like... Who do you think you are, man?
So Trumper for Yang says, it worked. OMG, the little one is right today. What the hell is going on? Up is down, down is up. I don't know what he's talking about. Who's the little one? Is he saying you?
Must be shorter, yeah.
I don't think he's talking about one of us. He might be talking about someone else. Anyway. And then John LeMay brings up again that Christian Solid. Look at Joe Rogan. Dude's more popular than most media. Yeah, I don't think he got popular through news reporting, though. And I think when we talk about the media, we're generally talking about the news media.
Commentary.
Yeah, it's political commentary, which is really only birthed. You have to remember, Cody.
He sold out as well, though.
Who sold out?
Joe Rogan sold out.
Joe Rogan. Oh, yeah. But also, that's not selling out as much because...
He gave up his library. I mean, he cashed out. He's like, I'm done. Give me my money.
Yeah, to me, that's more of cashing out. But also, his show is more entertainment than I think news media. And we hold news media, what we're supposed to be considering the statement of facts as they happen in real time with current events. We hold that to a different, higher level of editorialized commentary that's entertainment. And the reason why I think that we could, quote, go back to doing better media that's more factual based is because it's within our parents' lifetimes that it only got this bad. You and I were just talking pre-show. About this, and you need to look up the documentary called Worst of Friends or Worst of Enemies. And it's about the Gore Vidal versus William F. Buckley debate that basically birthed the modern political talking heads. And before then, it used to be that the news media channels would show up to the DNC, they would show up to the RNC, and they would just film it. And the RNC, which took 3 days to get through, the DNC, which took 4 days to get through, it's William F. Buckley, not William Randolph Hearst.
I don't know, but I just want to talk about, you were talking about how, I guess my parents were born in 1903, but William Randolph Hearst, I'm just pulling up his Wikipedia article. William Randolph Hearst, born in 1863, dead 1951, was an American businessman, newspaper publisher, and politician known for developing the nation's largest newspaper chain and media company,
yeah, he's the guy that talked about
his flamboyant methods of yellow journalism influenced the nation's popular media by emphasizing sensationalism and human interest stories. Hearst enters the publishing business in 1887 with Mitchell Trubitt after being given control of the San Francisco Examiner. This is 1863 he was born. So yes, in the end of the 1800s, the beginning of the 1900s, we had William Randolph Hearst helping to popularize this form of journalism.
But just hear me out here. By the time the print media had become yellow journalism racketeering, there was a thirst for a new form of media that would actually tell the facts as they were. And hence the birth of radio in the early 20th century, which for the next 30 years was the go-to form of everything until that finally sold out. Okay.
Speaking of radio, but just to your point about I think this is what I think is interesting to your point. There was a famous incident where
are you talking about War of the Worlds with Orson Welles?
Speaking of trust in the media, damn, man. Orson Welles read lines from War of the Worlds, and there was reports that people were legitimately thinking they were being invaded by aliens because someone was reading to them on the radio that indeed aliens were coming. So
and the lore is that people were actually self-terminating, okay? But those stories have been found to have been
But there was people freaking out thinking it was true.
But it did cause enough widespread hysteria that was unmanageable on behalf of the municipalities and law enforcement that they then required, afterwards, the FCC required, you still hear it nowadays, this is a dramatization. And it has to come in after every commercial break. And me and Cody both worked at a radio station. There's still a lot of these archaic FCC requirements, such as stating what your radio station is once every hour, and some other things there are thrown in that you have to do as a DJ. But anyway, the yellow press had its 30 to 50 year cycle before the public realized these people have sold out. It's a racket. Now what's the new dependable source of information? Hence the birth of radio, which had its 30 to 50 year cycle before it sold out. Then William F. Buckley debates Gore Vidal, and the news stations, which used to literally just stick a camera on the speaker and then let the speaker talk themselves, and were a completely neutral platform, shall we say, of broadcasting, are all of a sudden required to give talking heads and opinion and so on and so forth. And then that's when the decline started to happen on TV. And after its 30 to 50 year cycle, it sold out. I think there is going to be a new 30 to 50 year cycle in which social media based, ethical and transparent live streamers, YouTubers, podcasters are what people go to for their information that they trust, because people trust that individual YouTuber or live streaming organization's code of ethics, and it will probably functionally work well for the rest of our adult lives until 30 years from now it sells out and there's something else like VR. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on. Can I just really quickly read you how Wikipedia, I don't like using Wikipedia as law because it's just kind of like a general, Wikipedia to me is almost like the shared history, right? Like anyone can just kind of throw in their own interpretation.
Yeah, but it's good enough for basics.
I'll read through, yeah. Can I read through this little section right here called Yellow Journalism and Rivalry with the New York World? So William Randolph Hearst. Tell me if any of this sounds familiar to anyone. The New York Journal and its chief rival, the New York World, mastered a style of popular journalism that came to be derided as yellow journalism after Outcolt's Yellow Kid comic. Pulitzer's World had pushed the boundaries for mass appeal for newspapers through bold headlines, aggressive news gathering, generous use of cartoons and illustrations, populist politics, progressive crusades, an exuberant public spirit, and dramatic crime and human interest stories. Wow, that doesn't sound literally word for word how I would describe modern television media. Even going back to the progressive crusades and the populist politics, none of that's gone anywhere, man.
Repeat that. That's worth repeating. Say that again.
So Pulitzer's World had pushed the boundaries of mass appeal for newspapers through bold headlines, aggressive news gathering, generous use of cartoons and illustrations, populist politics, progressive crusades, an exuberant public spirit, and dramatic crime and human interest stories. Wow. Yeah. You mean like all the coverage of the riots? Like it's literally, that covers all of this. The populist politics, the progressive crusades, the exuberant public spirit.
This is why we need Jesus, man.
Anyway, Hearst Journal would then use the same recipe for success, forcing Pulitzer to drop the price of the World from 2 cents to a penny, 50%. Soon the two papers were locked in a fierce, often spiteful competition for readers, in which both papers spent large sums of money, and saw huge gains in circulation. That sounds nothing like Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN right now. Yeah. Sounds nothing like it.
Hey, but at least Fox News says we're the conservative outlet.
Mind you, this was like...
At least MSNBC says... well, they've gotten a little bit better at it. I always used to say when people said, well, what do you trust? I would say, well, I don't trust a lot of cable news, but I appreciate and prefer Fox News because at least when they report me their kind of conservative spun version of the news, they at least say, like Sean Hannity gets up there and at least says, this is the conservative opinion. You know, like I at least don't feel like I'm, being lied to. You know, I don't mind that I'm being spun to, but at least I'm not feeling lied to and told this is the news.
It gets even funnier. Human beings are so arrogant, man. We feel like no one's ever lived our lives before. I really quickly want to give $5 super chat from Dan Lawrence. Said, love the stream. The stock market's green today, so here you go.
Yo,
talk about nothing making sense. The market just goes. It's almost like when like I guess I guess that's the saying, right? When there's blood in the streets, buy real estate or whatever. But it's just like if news is bad, I remember when the jobs report came out and the market went up, and then the next day there was a correction and the jobs report were basically fibbed by 3%. They just fudged it and didn't count 3%.
Yeah,
and the market just kept going up. Anyway, though, listen to this. This was too much. So these people got to think of new defenses for themselves. Check this out. So. Though yellow journalism would be much maligned, White said, all good yellow journalists sought the human in every story and edited without fear of emotion or drama. They wore their feelings on their pages, believing it was an honest and wholesome way to communicate with the readers. This appeal to feelings is not an end in itself. Our emotions tend to ignite our intellects. A story catering to a reader's feelings is more likely than a dry treatise to stimulate thought. That is legitimately, once again, word for word, the defense of partisan media journalists. Basically. And yes, we've gone through this whole song and dance 100 years ago. What's scary, just going through the timeline of events, I knew a little bit about William Randolph Hearst. I went through his little mini bio. You know what ended this war of yellow journalism?
Him beating out Pulitzer.
No,
he
a legitimate war, the Spanish-American War. They go on to mention that the two papers likely declared a truce in late 1898 after both lost vast amounts of money covering the Spanish-American War. Hearst probably lost $7 million in his first 3 years as publisher of the journal, but the paper began turning a profit after it ended its fight with the world. Because when the news...
How are they fighting?
I mean, just... How are they fighting? I don't know. Maybe it's something like when Brian Stelter goes on CNN and says Fox News is a bunch of liars and don't watch it. Maybe it's something like when Tucker Carlson goes on Fox News and calls the same guy from CNN a eunuch, a moron. Maybe that's how they were fighting. Don't listen to them. They're liars. They're biased. They're slanted. Their news is crap. Listen to us. Yeah. Maybe that's how they were fighting.
I choose Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
I choose Tucker. Tucker and Sagar and Jetty are the new thought leaders of the new right.
Jesus, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm telling you, those are my boys right there. Tucker Carlson and Sagar and Jetty. I'm digging Sagar lately, man. I'm all up on him. You know what I'm saying? So we got some interesting comments here. Sly Cactus says, if you watch something on CNN or MSNBC, you should also watch it on Fox News to get the other side and vice versa. Fred Chung says, make it law that corrections are on the front page first segment. Ooh, that's actually something where when you talk about ethics of journalism, corrections have to be on the front page. That was something that I have heard suggested before, where people said we would never want to restrict free speech, but we wouldn't mind saying in a certification process in order for you to be, by this third-party organization similar to those that certify the T1000 accountants or the TC1000 accountants or whatever those accountants are. Chat, if you guys know what phrase it is that I'm grasping for, if there's any accounts out there, can you just include in the chat what that accountants, after they've gotten their CPA, there's an extra certification that's third party they can get that means they're subject to a higher code of ethics. Okay, put that down.
But I have a question.
But yeah, correction should be on the front page.
Quick question for you though.
Yeah, what?
Why would the two things you brought up have this specific special qualification for the people that are higher tiered? Scuba diving and accounting. It's because people care about their lives and their money and they don't want people messing around with it. People don't feel that way about the news, man. They just legitimately don't. You could argue they should, maybe, but I'm just saying, like, you lose me $100,000. I'm way more pissed than you lied to me when I know you're lying. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think that's why accounting and scuba have that, because no one wants someone dying on their watch, and no one wants to lose someone all their money. Like, they want to make sure that you do a good job, and to prove it, like, people like have a high standard, but they don't have that high standard for journalism. People will, and it's kind of the style of yellow journalism described in that article. People will read an article from some random blog they've never heard of before and just, what? This can't be. How could this be true, right? I mean,
well, I think we've stopped teaching that to children. Now, I mean, there used to be an entire class in 4th grade about how to respond to commercials. We used to teach, as part of our curriculum in the state of California, teach kids how to watch TV and understand that, look, in the commercials, the toys don't actually fly. Look, this won't actually make you 100% happy. We used to actually have this in the educational zeitgeist of America. And all of that's been stripped out to make way for Pride Month, Black History Month, ADA compliance, and all these social issues that you have to just throw down kids' throats now. Teachers are so swarmed with social issues now they don't have time for reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Here's the thing. You could say that teachers haven't had time for reading and writing and arithmetic for 30 years, man. I'm done hearing it. All teachers do is, all that happens is that apparently the most oppressive curriculum is forced on students forever because no one's ever happy with it. That's all I know.
Okay, only the most impressive.
Apparently all education is oppressive and everyone hates it. Everyone complains all the time about that.
But you can't say that public education has not gotten a lot worse.
I don't know.
As it's been crowded out by social issues. Yeah. Well, my mom's a teacher, so I'm much more intimately aware of this.
But still, here's the other thing, is that like they also have a different business model for schools now. They groom you for college. That's the end game, because college you end up having to pay the federal government your loans back, or you have to be kind of independently wealthy going in. So that's the new system.
But isn't that itself an indictment? Like I was just saying, we used to teach kids much more social intelligence, and now we don't teach them. Sorry, not social. I meant emotionally intelligent things. And in the educational zeitgeist, there were a lot of these personal issues that people need to know, like don't believe everything you read because it's sensationalist garbage. We used to teach that to kids. Now we don't teach that. They still do. Oh no, they teach them you got to factor trinomials, and they teach the test. Kids have been overwhelmed by testing.
They definitely teach kids to not believe certain things. I mean, they tell kids propaganda exists all over time. We know about it.
Okay, so actually, this is an interesting question for the parents in the chat. I guess I'll say, I know there's a couple of you elder millennials out there with me that have children. Those of you that are intimately aware of the educational goals and processes in the public education institutions you send your children to, do you notice that they are getting taught the same amount of emotional intelligence that you were taught as a child and was curriculum as a child? Or do you feel that it is a lot more general politics? Or do you feel it's the same and things haven't changed? I actually am sending my children to the school that I went to
how about this?
As a kid.
I have a question for parents. Whose job is it? The state's to teach your kids that, or yours?
No, I think it's the parents' job, but the attitude has always been, and this is big on me, and there's data that backs this up, man. The attitude when I was a kid and my mom started teaching, I've had lengthy discussions about this with teachers that have been there for 40 years because I was going to be an educator. I actually was a Spanish teaching major when I was at BYU. I applied to the major, I should say. I'm sorry. When my mother started teaching, and my father was an educator for a time too, but when my parents started teaching, and this was mirrored by my parents' friends as well, they said the attitude was different because the state thought these are the parents' kids and they're on loan to the public school during the day where they get taught how to be a better citizen by mutually agreed upon doctrines and ideas and curriculum set forth by the state, and then they're returned to their parents who are responsible for them afterwards. But now the thought of the government is, no, they're not the parents' children. They're our children. And we get them all day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, where we will indoctrinate them, and then they can sleep at your house.
Okay, but
and they're on loan to you for the nighttime. There's that attitude shift.
Okay, but what was the name of the king by royal decree who made that happen?
Oh, no, I'm not saying it was done by a king by royal decree. I'm saying it's the slow atrophy of social values with an increase in government.
No, why is it that, to your point, the state feels like they own the kids and not the parents?
Because we as a people have permitted that, and tough times or hard times created tough people created good times created soft people, and now the soft people have created hard times.
Are you sure, though? These are hard times?
In terms of education, yeah. Look, we have an entire generation of millennials who are indebted in student loans.
Okay, but I would also argue that we have a lot of fake, not real problems.
That's true. These are hashtag world. I get that these are
good times. When the hard times truly come, we will know.
Dog, I can't say anything right, man. The chat's agreeing with me, and you never name one thing you've agreed with me on, Cody, all week. We have a couple of questions here. Trumper for Yang says, I'm going to do a video on this. This is a very important topic. And he said, pulled our 3 kids out of school 5 years ago. Interesting. 10, 12, and 14, they own their own businesses. They are prepared for life, not long division and multiplying fractions. Hey, I got to say, I even recognized when I was in high school, and tell me if you thought the same thing, Cody. I was amazed that I could graduate with a high school diploma. I was given the ultimate certification that public education could give back then of K through 12. And I didn't know how to balance a checkbook. And the only reason I knew how to change oil in my car was because my dad had showed me. Like all the practical things I knew how to do, I were either from my dad, from Boy Scouts, or maybe metal shop and wood shop. But all of just like real life issues, like how to go out, get an apartment, how to live, how to do a budget so you don't, become the 25-year-old that's got $60,000 in credit card debt, and can't get a home and is forced into poverty because of bad decisions in his early 20s. All of those practical life things were taught to me through Boy Scouts, through interested church leaders, through my parents and extended family. And I thought, no, there's a place for this in public education because I was lucky that I had a good extended family, that I had good church groups, and I had the Boy Scouts of America. What about the kids that don't? They can't get screwed.
But wait.
We have to include this as part of our education, which used to be included when my mom was in school.
So you want the government to teach this to kids instead of the parents?
I would much rather.
What if the government's values do not align with yours and they are teaching your kids values today? You just think they're not as useful as the state thinks they are.
Well, you're right that I don't think the government believes in balancing its checkbook right now. And maybe that is a problem. And maybe if we started requiring and demanding from our school districts that they do have a class on life skills that includes how to balance a checkbook, that maybe we'll breed a populace that understands deficits more.
Balance a checkbook.
I know that's kind of a boomer term now.
Why don't we teach you how to cobble shoes? Like, what are you talking about, balance checkbook? What I'm saying is, dude, sorry, old man, but the world's changed in the last 20 years as well. They teach kids things. There's new skills human beings need to survive in this world. And sometimes, yes, the how you change your own oil skill is one that's shuffled to the back. Because I do believe paid oil change is actually probably more expensive as time's gone on. But you can go out and learn if you want, or people can do it for you. That's how most things in the world have always been. You can go out and learn yourself or pay someone to do it for you. That's really it. Dude, the more values-based teaching and, that from the government, the worse. Everything you're complaining about the government doing is them messing around in what you want to meddle around in. Like most people, you want the government to meddle around in your way, but they're going to meddle around their own way. They're going to say, we're going to teach kids about how to, like you said, be a member of community and stuff our way.
Yeah,
you might disagree with it, but that's what they're gonna do. Not everybody believes that not everybody wants to instill the exact same values on their children.
So we got some interesting questions
here. So the state
here.
will always be pissing someone off when they instill values, and maybe right now you're just the one getting pissed off, but not everyone.
Am I that old man that's sitting on the porch telling all the kids to get off my lawn? Is that what you're saying, Cody?
All I'm saying is you want the state to do what they're already doing, just in a way you find more palatable, is what I'm saying.
Well, to a certain extent, isn't that our job as citizens is to constantly be being that sharpening stone that's going up against the blade of this institution we pay our taxes to, so it serves us best? Don't we constantly train our oxen and our horses so when they're out on the farm, we as the farmers,
but hold on.
They're serving us more?
Do you think that it should be the state's duty to teach these things to your children?
If it's public education,
but
yes.
Why are they not supposed to be teaching them the things you don't know how to do and leave the things you do know how to do to yourself to teach?
So that there's reinforcement in both areas.
Okay, so what happens when literally the state is telling them contradictory to you? Because you got what you wanted. Exactly. You got what you wanted, dude. The state's doing what you want to do. You just don't like the curriculum. I'm sorry, but that's the reality.
Well, yeah, and that's the point. So if you don't like the curriculum, and we all agree we should change the curriculum, you just change the curriculum.
We all do? When do we all raise hands and decide that we agree with Cardinals and change the curriculum to what he wants? When did that happen?
Well, back when curriculum was generally voted upon by parent-student organizations, and it was a lot more, how should we say, populist, then yes, I think that was true. However, a big problem that I've been clamoring about for a long time is that unelected bureaucrats in the Department of Education, through cooperation with Hoot and Mufflin and these massive textbook manufacturers, are now just becoming this self-serving, unregulated, unvoted monster that we all have to feed into. And yeah, that is part of my criticism.
What a brilliant case for not having the schools instill values on children. Because what do you know? When the government and the state gets involved in things, dude, the state runs everything one way. Top down, we make the rules. So the state runs everything.
Okay, so fine.
So why don't you... I advocate for removing all of this. I agree. I think that is something parents should be teaching kids. Because I don't think the state can say, this is the accepted opinion on this. Stamped by your teacher. I don't think that's right, man. People disagree and have, like... As human beings, we experience legitimate dilemmas.
Yeah.
Legitimate issues. Legitimate things where there's a point on both sides. And I think having the state choose a side is dumb. Well, all it's going to do is lead to a superiority in a particular line of thinking, because you do it long enough, and, hey, the state tells enough people what they're supposed to and allowed to think about something, they'll just start to accept
but hold on. Do you think it's an arguable value that has a political edge to it, or just a universal truth? Teaching kids basics of finance. That, look, hey, here's how the banking system works. There's individual accounts and those personal accounts. Hold on, let me finish. You can get a loan, and if you get a loan, you'll be charged interest. And there's a difference between simple interest and compounding interest. And oftentimes people get into trouble if they have, too many credit cards, and this is how credit cards work. Like, if there's a basically neutral course, I'm not saying one where it says we think it's unethical to incur debt. There's Christian faiths that like literally believe that, and there's entire radio shows. You can listen to that Dan guy. What's his name? The Christian finance guy.
No, I agree. No, hold on.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree for what you're saying though. Sorry, I don't want to.
So I think
I agree with finance. They should teach kids more finance stuff. 1,000% agree on that.
Yeah. So I don't think you're necessarily saying that's a value as much as just an explanation of how the system works and how the system could screw you.
Well,
and just statistically what pitfalls there are. Like, for example...
That's the fine line.
No, I get it's a fine line, but so let's figure out what that fine line is. And let's walk it. That's what all of education is figuring out fine lines.
Tell me one fine line the state walks. Tell me one.
Oh, all the time. Teen issues. You can't say that class that we both had to take in high school, teen issues, wasn't a fine line. We had to carry around that fake baby and feed it.
What I'm saying is this. Governments... Tell me one issue between people the government walks that fine line on. I don't think there's one. And the government always takes a side. And it becomes the supreme dominant side because the government's behind it.
Well, yeah, like, for example, I'm not saying, let's just take like a financial literacy class. Let's call it just financial literacy, okay? I don't think a financial literacy class would have to go so far that it talks about the value of, you should take financial risks. If you want to start a company, you should go out there and you should just go get that loan, bro. I'm not saying that they should have a Tony Robbins guy saying that, you need to go out there and take that risk and grab the world by the balls and become an entrepreneur. And then I'm also not saying that they should have the, who's that Christian radio guy that's always talking about...
Joel Osteen?
No, not Joel Osteen. Yeah. Who's the financial Christian radio guy put in the chat? I'm not saying there should be somebody there saying, look, you need to have $10,000 in a bank account, and unless you're saving and paying off your house, you're not a good person. I'm not saying they need to be making those value judgments, but I think it's fair to say, look, guys, 85% of America can't afford a $500 bill, and it keeps them from going to the hospital and getting life-saving preventive procedures done, or overlooking issues that they feared going to the hospital to get checked out that cause them to die early. So it's worth you trying to save, if not just so that you're not part of that 85%.
Dude,
simple lesson, totally mathematically driven, devoid of...
If I found out that my kid was doing worksheets on save money so you don't go broke, I'd be livid, dude. I'd be furious.
Okay.
Are you going to tell my kid how the fuck...
So what do you think of, like, Black History
Are you going to
Month?
tell him where the sky is? Like, it's ridiculous. Some of this stuff's nonsense, man. Like,
okay.
I agree. They need to tell people how these systems function. But, dude, once you get too far into them, you think there's people that all just agree in finance, that there's just a way to finance? There's controversy and dilemma in there, man.
Hey, Vistatronic brings up a good question. I got this question for you, Cody. Vistatronic says, schools teach driver's education. Why not finance education?
I agree they should. What I'm saying is, yes.
Wait, now you agree with me.
No, I think I misunderstood your point originally. What I'm saying is, I agree that there should be a greater focus on this is our society, this is the world you're going into, and this is how it works. The only problem is, you could structure, you can use that same framework for explaining why they'll devote a bunch of time to a bunch of different stuff. So if you take objection to it, like you said, why do they have to learn about Black History Month? I don't know. I think it's a fine thing to teach kids. But it's part of the world you're going into. They need to know what the different groups of people that inhabit our country are and how they've interacted over the years. Is that not useful info? What, some kid leaves the bubble of his little thing and then just doesn't understand?
Well, but to me, I don't see how you could say you'd be furious that somebody was getting taught basics of finance
Well, if you pull things back to potato level, it's useless. Is what I'm saying. So there's going to be
potato level a phrase that I just haven't used or heard before.
But I mean, if you're gonna pull things back to just like, saving money is helpful, it's just like, dude, don't teach. Like, not that I don't teach them that. Like, I guess I'm paying my taxes, but it's like, come on, what is this? I agree. How the things, but here's the thing, right? The market's going to be, they want a bunch of people playing the markets. They want a bunch of competition. There's reasons behind, like, things don't just end up away for no reason. The government does want to teach kids a certain way of thinking, and they're doing it now.
Yeah.
Good point you brought up. Why is it? Think about that in chat.
Dave Ramsey, by the way, is his name. Chat came up with the answer.
Think about that. Think about that for a second, chat. Why would, because I agree. Why is there so many Americans that can't handle a $500 bill at a moment's notice? And why did so many of them graduate through the state-funded education system? Why is that? Why are so many graduates of American education graduating in a state where they feel almost non-competitive in various job markets in the financial?
Because that's maybe what the education has led them to be.
Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. Maybe they're just dumb.
So I think part of that empowerment and making them not lemmings would be teaching financial discipline. Spencer For Hire says, what about people who don't go to college? Well, Spencer, that's why I think it should be part of K through 12 education. I swear, if you can't do basic car maintenance and can't do basic financial maintenance, like we need citizens that are Minutemen. If we're literally saying that the point of K through 12 education is to breed better citizens, which is always the philosophical justification of public education, okay, is that it creates a better citizenry. Well, then we need a bunch of Minutemen citizens who can do basic infantry tasks in this war of ideas and life and citizenry, okay, and not a bunch of governmental and or corporate dependent lemmings. And we have drifted away from the Minutemen ideology into the corporate lemmings.
Could you explain
ideology.
Why? Who benefits from the state-run education system?
The corporations do, and the establishment.
Creating people who end up dependent on the state.
Oh yeah, the political class and the corporate class.
Like that's just it's just some kind of cosmic coincidence that yes, people that just follow what the state school tells them to do end up, not always, but if you uncritically follow what they tell you, you can end up in debt, ass backwards, and just basically hopeless and dependent on the state. I wonder that benefits. I wonder who wins there. Is it you, the person who went through that schooling system, believe the lies they told you and where you are? I'm just saying, man, it feels to me like, if the goal of schooling was to, like you said, create these Minutemen type figures, they'd be failing. But if the goal was to create people who are dependent, they'd be succeeding. Would you not agree?
If the goal was to create people who
be dependent on the state, they're succeeding. Would you not agree?
Yes, I would agree.
So
whoa, things are going crazy over here. Sorry. I accidentally turned on your sound.
So maybe that's just what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like maybe they just don't want what you think they want. And maybe they're getting what they want now.
That's actually true. And so how do we take that back? Yeah,
well, I agree. Kids should be learning about math, reading. But here's the thing, right? With the modern political form, even literature's politicized. I remember my literature in school heavily politicized. I don't think I read...
Well, what's an example?
I don't think I read one book that didn't have some kind of socially political angle to it.
Oh, yeah, because you had to read, like, Animal Farm and, like, Tar Beach.
No, it wasn't even like that. We read, it was, like, I think, I don't remember the age. But yeah, there was, like, a full semester where all we did was read, like, Maya Angelou poems and, like, To Kill a Mockingbird about racism in the South. We did an entire semester on the Holocaust. And that was it. That was literature we covered. It was mostly social bent to literature. I agree. I think these social bends need to come out of school, and I think that there needs to be some... I think people should learn about society through socializing outside of schools. I know schools don't want to hear that kids don't have to be trapped inside your things. Not even, I guess, unstructured playtime is one word. Just have kids go out in the world and do stuff. It's a great way to learn about finance when you're in high school.
Yeah.
Get paid at a job and see, oh, damn, it's all gone already. I'm not trying to be like something like, I'm saying it's amazing what you can learn about society by just being a member of society. And I think we do sell kids a little short. I don't like probably the little bit contradictory points I was making earlier, but I do agree that, like, yeah, kids should be learning the most basic factual tools that they need. Like, schools should be giving you tools and then letting you make decisions. Fortunately, they're trying to help you make the decisions too much. And that's a problem. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. They're not really poisoning, but they're putting things in kids' heads when they maybe should have let the kids just come to their own conclusions. Like, I think there should be, like, less. They shouldn't be teaching kids very much what to think anyway. There should be a lot more open-ended stuff. There shouldn't be. Here's the problem, though.
Yeah.
History is a great win for this. There shouldn't be the right side history people are taught. Unfortunately, there always will be. I don't know how you get around it. But there's the generally, like we were talking before, the French Revolution is a funny thing. Because the French Revolution, at the time, the French revolutionaries were, ideologically similar somewhat to the American revolutionaries. Jefferson was a fan of what's going on in the French Revolution. We look back today, and it's like they were kind of just murdering people for no reason, and it was madness. But it was ridiculously popular in America because it was that was what we did. We overthrew our tyrants, and we're supporting other people do it.
Yeah, so we got some interesting questions here, and we're actually going to be wrapping up pretty soon. So if you got any last super chats, make sure you get them out of the system. Also, and many of you guys have asked how else you can help contribute to the channel. Super chats are great. You can make a PayPal donation. And also, I'm setting up an Amazon wish list for equipment that we've got, like some lenses and some cool live streaming camera stuff and so on and so forth. So if you guys want to support us that way, there's going to be an Amazon wish list. So thanks for all your support. Got some really funny comments here. Fred Chung says, critical thinking, symbolic logic, and intro to philosophy should be a mandatory course for grade 10. I agree with that. And then there was another one in here. Sly Cactus brought up a good point, Cody. Are we going to be taught about the rise and fall of Chaz in future history classes? Like, do you think this is going to hit the radar of the history books that our grandkids hear about? Huh?
No, not anymore.
Is the Chaz?
Not with your new curriculum. With the new curriculum, they'll be learning about how to open up a checking account. So.
Well, hopefully not. Actually, hopefully the Chaz. Actually, I do.
No, the right side of history legitimately exists. There's such thing as the right side of history. It's called when I've conquered your lands and burned your history, I decide it now. That's what the right side of history is.
And when you all worship my gods.
Well, what I mean, just like seriously, it's like it's crazy how like when the winners, like all the atrocities, they just kind of go away. It's like, yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah, and then
I'll tell you one thing. There was nothing bad happened to anybody living in Germany during the end of World War II.
What?
The noble victor Americans and the noble victor English and Russians, we just kind of treated them as noble humans. In spite of all the atrocities they committed. There was no liberties taken with these people. There was no awful things done. Human beings didn't have their lives destroyed by the noble victors. Why would they do that? We were the good guys who beat the bad guys. They got what they deserve. That's just how things work, man.
I prefer just thinking of myself as morally superior and justifying any actions that I do. Based upon that moral superiority.
Hey, you know what? Well, that's my favorite thing about history writing the victors writing the history book. Now, I don't think anybody would argue. I'm not going to argue that the Confederates should have won the Civil War. I'm glad the Union won the war. I think that was the proper thing. I think the Civil War shouldn't have happened. However, one of the things that they did to win the war was they unleashed General William Tecumseh Sherman on his march to the sea, where he marched to the sea. I believe in Atlanta, Georgia. He marched down to the south, and he did some things. A lot of people lost their lives that probably didn't need to, as this man was stampeding his way to Georgia, where I think he then basically burned Georgia down. It wasn't pretty. However, he did kind of help end the war and win it for the Union, specifically the rich New Yorkers. Do you know they repaid this man? I mean, we would probably say some of the things he committed were borderline war crimes. They weren't great things. They gave him this absolutely opulent, gaudy, golden Roman-esque statue in Manhattan for doing that.
Yeah, I remember the very first time.
For the war crimes he essentially committed.
I remember the very first time you showed me that picture. I don't know if you remember the interaction, Cody, but I will always remember this golden comment that you said, almost as golden as that statue. Is you said, what was that guy's name again? And you started typing. And you said, I know there's a big golden statue to him, so he must have committed hella war crimes because we only give golden statues to the war criminals. then you looked it up, and then I remember it was like Sherman's March to the Sea was like one of the most horrendous marches of the Civil War that committed the most heinous war crimes. Now, I know that a lot of it was propaganda and was over-exaggerated according to many primary sources there, but nevertheless, there was a lot of unnecessary burning going on that many people could consider war crimes under modern circumstances that was above the average for Civil War.
Well, I mean, one of the things that was going on, it was war. I believe, I could be wrong, I believe this was one of the scorched earth portion of the Civil War. It was bad.
I know, I think that's where the term scorched earth came from, was from Sherman's March for the Sea.
It was bad stuff, man.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, he was doing things like he would like, there were stories where he'd come through and they'd free a bunch of slaves, and slaves would be like, oh, good, the Unioners freed us, and they would just be like, all right, I guess you're free or whatever. We have no food or shelter for you, and they were just kind of abandoned to wander around Atlanta, or Georgia, I mean. Rough stuff. It was a war. But I tell you what, you win the war for the people sitting back up in the big city, they'll put that statue up for you. They'll make people think this man, what a great man, the great things he did. He ended the war for him. He helped him. He did a good thing. But again, that's the victors writing the history books. So we're the victors. We write the history books, and we mention these things. They're not forgotten. That's the thing. People say victors write the history book. It's not this idea that, like, entire acts are completely omitted. You can find them. Like I said, you can find out that, there was people that were executed by the Allies during the Nuremberg trials and stuff. Like, some of them were just kind of like, man, it's messed up. The guy was literally just kind of like, didn't agree. Like, he wasn't even doing anything. He just happened to live in Germany. Got roped into it. He wasn't working at the camps, and they would kill him all the same. They're like, whatever. You fought for them.
So
which
Spencer,
you could argue maybe makes, but just my point being is that we tend to create narratives like it was okay that we did it, is what I'm trying to say. It's very rarely this, it never happened. It's more, it did happen and it was probably wrong, but we were justified.
Yeah. So last couple of comments here before we shut her down. Spencer for Hire says, couldn't we have just one big monument in D.C. for the Civil War and take everything else down? You know, that's been an idea that was floated around, especially during the time when all of the Confederate statues were considered controversial. But heck, now we're pulling down statues of Thomas Jefferson. So now I guess just statues in general are controversial. But the reason why I was actually against that idea is, why does Washington the only place that gets a monument? I actually think monuments are a great way of contextualizing and remembering and commemorating monumental acts of history. So the more statues for great people, the merrier. And what better way for a public educator to teach children about history than to say, hey, you know how in our Central Park there's a statue to X, Y, or Z thing that's commemorated because it's significant to both our country or our nation or a municipality? I think statues are great and they should be everywhere. So I don't want Washington, D.C. to be the only one that has a Civil War memorial. All right. Now, they do have to be contextualized. But, I don't want Washington, D.C. to be this Pan Am that's the only place that's allowed to have statues, you know. And let me see. John LeMay asks if anybody's on the Discord yet. No, we're actually getting the Discord up and running again. And it's actually never stopped. But we're actually going to hopefully start doing call-ins this week. We're actually pretty excited for that. We might even be able to do that tomorrow. And then last question that I was going to say is, why not put Voltron and combine all the statues in one big statue? The bigger it is, the more American it is. Yeah, kind of like Transformers.
Well, because, again,
where Optimus Prime, like when I was a kid, I had the Transformer where the truck was the arm and then the Camaro was the other arm and then the body was the tank. You know what I'm saying? That could be pretty sick.
Well, I mean, we do have monuments and statues all over the place. But again, this man had this particular statue built for him because he did a particular thing to the people who decide who build statues.
Yeah.
That's why they don't build. Do you think they could have built the Voltron statue then? They didn't want to, because this guy helped the Union not suffer an embarrassing defeat against the Confederacy.
Oh, wait a second. Voltron. I was thinking of the Transformer.
I mean, same idea.
Yeah, okay.
But that's why. Is because they don't build these statues so we can just kind of say, and then there's that. I mean, they build them for reasons. They want to venerate people. It just, time passes, history changes, and we forget why we want to venerate these people. I think it's one of the reasons why it's good to keep the statues, though, so we can ask. One day people will ask, why does this man get this ridiculous golden statue in New York City? That's crazy. Why does he get that? And you find out, well, because he basically instilled fear into the hearts of everyone in the South when they heard that his army was coming to burn your village down. That's why he got a statue.
Yeah.
He was going to come and basically chase you out with fire and bayonets, and he kept going until I think he estimated, what was the number? They estimate that in the destruction, it was something like, it was some crazy amount of money. I can't find it right here. They had it in the article. But I mean, yeah, like a bunch of people were killed by this guy. That's why he got a statue. A bunch of buildings were burned by his order. That's why he got a statue. I don't know. It's tough, but that's why we built statues of people. You know why? You know why the New Yorkers built a statue of that man? They sure as hell were not putting on a uniform and marching down to Georgia to burn it down. They weren't doing that. They were going to sit up in New York City and just pray that the other people took care of it for them. And then when you do that for them, when you do these people dirty work, to make sure you don't realize, wait a minute, I'm doing your dirty work, they do things like build you a giant statue.
Yeah.
And then that way other people don't ask questions like, wait a minute, what did he get out of all this? What did he get out of helping the Union maintain control? What did he get out of all that?
So this is my last comment. It's from Sly Cactus, and I think you would agree with him, Cody. He says, one giant Kobe statue. That's all I ask.
Oh, it's coming.
That's not a hard ask, man. It's not a hard ask. Although here's a problem, Cody. Will it be golden? He was not indeed a war criminal. So, it may not be golden. It'll have to be purple.
Kobe didn't order any drone strikes, so it's unfortunately going to be just a regular like pewter or whatever statue.
Yeah, he's just going to have a regular pewter. Actually, wouldn't pewter actually melt on a really hot day?
Maybe. JJ said murderers should not be celebrated no matter what side. Depends why you're murdering people, my man. I don't agree with them. I'm saying, like, legitimately, that's the only difference. Why you're murdering people, if it's for a good reason, you get a statue. Because the thing is,
I think that's a semantic argument of what's murder and then what is
killing, whatever. Semantic aside.
Yeah.
The bottom line is they build you this thing. They build him the statue because the people who with the money and who could write off on this sure as hell aren't killing people themselves.
Yeah.
They're paying someone to do it for them, and they're paying them in bribes and in real money, and they're going to shower them in gifts. Why do you think they used to love showering generals the way they used to do? Because they're like, thank you for doing what I don't want to, which is funny. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You think of. That's why I do like America still as the commander-in-chief as the president. I don't want to get too far into it. But it was just always an idea that, like, war was what was for the leaders. And then I think as, leaders left the battlefield, as they became too important, it was too easy to get killed, they started to be happy. They had people out there doing it for them. I mean, like, look, George Washington, when was the last time, and even Washington, like, is an American president ever took to the field of battle?
Oh yeah, there was Washington, and then there was three presidents that had served in wars.
No, I'm not talking about.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
as president. No,
yeah, we've never had the tent for the emperor in our battlefield. It's like that's never been how America's done things.
Yeah, well, it's generally not how modern warfare has done things. So,
but Napoleon was like right at the beginning of America. Napoleon was rampaging through Europe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I mean 1400s there. When we think more of modern warfare, I think we're thinking of starting around World War I, when guns really became the thing and not cavalry. But anyway, my last comment, and I've said this 3 times, but now it is the real last comment, is I never thought of it this way, but John LeMay brings up a really good point. It says the statues weren't created by the men whom they represent. They were made by artists. What if Michelangelo's statues were of horrible men? Would it be acceptable to rip them down? That's true. There's statues of different Caesars and Roman emperors who did horrible things.
People, by the way,
but because we're so detached from the atrocity, we can appreciate the artistic value of the statue. Are we not allowing that in modern statues?
Yeah. Throughout history, the answer was always you tear them down. For the record.
Okay.
Think about it. There's been people would get invaded and they tear their monuments down. We used to do that. Yeah. I will admit it is. You know what the first statue I remember falling down in my lifetime was?
Saddam Hussein?
Yeah, Saddam Hussein.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, that was a big dramatic moment when they toppled the Saddam statue in Iraq. What, that 20 years ago now? Yeah, but I don't know. The reason why I brought it up, I just wanted to. It's just interesting. It's just interesting when people talk about the idea of people are taking down statues and stuff. But it's like these statues are generally put up because someone did something that whoever commissioned the statue didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And that's generally why these things. Not always, but generally, and sometimes for good reason. Like the World War II monuments, Because people who paid for them, the senators and stuff, a lot of them weren't going to fight in the war themselves. They needed someone to do it for them. So they make monuments to remember these people. But not always. There's exceptions. But generally speaking, that seems to be it. When someone went out there and did something I wasn't going to do myself, I'll make them a statue because that's what I can do.
Yeah. So, by the way, I've been doing mental exercises throughout the week, thinking based upon our conversation earlier about what phraseology we can say if we don't like using the term African American because we view it as divisive, but we still want to be able to
say whatever you want. Use whatever word you want.
I think we need to bring back and empower the term citizen. So I think black citizen should be the new African American.
It's the exact same. No,
or just.
I have a radical word.
What?
Why don't we just start calling people Americans?
Dude. Well, yeah, I know, but you want to be able to say like. It's a value to say like there's the black community. I don't have a problem with saying that.
I agree.
But I'm just thinking, bringing back empowering the term citizen. Boom.
See, why not come with citizens or Americans? I agree. Citizens and Americans are pretty good.
Okay, cool. So anyway.
There's very few times where I read a paragraph that says that a man or an American or someone did things, and I go, yeah, but what race were they, huh? I mean, I never asked myself that question. If you just put in the sentence, a man by the name of whatever did a thing, I wouldn't be like, yeah, but what race is he? You got to tell me his race. I don't feel that way. I'm just like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Glad to know. I agree sometimes it can help to describe, but for the most part, yeah, just telling that there was a person A and person B almost. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks a lot for hanging out, guys. Thanks a lot for being with us. Christian Solid, thank you for the last minute super chat. Keep your eyes out for the Problem Solver Politics wish list.
1 second. I don't know what I was just saying, like, just no argument I was making by saying that just America has never had our presidents on battlefields. It's just a quirk of America. There was a time where leaders were on battlefields. Not anymore for America. It's not like a big deal or anything. I just thought.
Yeah, I don't know what Beans is getting at, but whatever.
I think it's worth noting. That's interesting. There was times that was done.
I think he's baiting you, dog. I think he's baiting you.
Well, but my larger point was I do think it's one of the reasons why the U.S. government, typically speaking, has venerated our generals and soldiers so much. Is because they've always been the people out there doing the work that our leaders are no longer doing. Because that was just how we function now. I think it's cool.
Yeah. So anyway. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us, guys. We'll be here same time, same place. Check us out mañana. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next live stream.